Hello, hello. Good afternoon. I know I'm in that tough position, which is right after lunch, so I'm going to try to keep everyone engaged and interested. One of the things is I'm a business owner, like many of you, and I was thinking of a topic that I would have an interest in if I was coming to one of these events. And I think when you come to these sessions, you hear many times people talk about their successes. They talk about the things that they've been able to accomplish, and that's good. You need that kind of encouragement. But as in my journey, I think one of the things that I wanted to hear about and was of interest to me was really, how do you make it through when things don't necessarily go well? Because it's going to happen. And so I really gave some thought to that topic, and I'm just going to go over 3 areas that normally I found were a challenge for me. But when we get started, just to kind of help me know who's in the audience, by raising your hand, if you could tell me if you are either a brand new business owner or someone who's been in business for less than 1 year, could you raise your hand for me? Okay. If you've been in business for less than 5 years, could you raise your hand? Okay. Anyone greater than 5 years? Okay, great. That's helpful. I've actually, I'm going to be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So we were excited. It's a big one. And the 3 areas that I want to talk about is something called FUD. Many of you probably have heard of it. F-U-D, FUD. Anyone know what that is? Especially I see some sales people in here, so I know you probably know what it is because it's mainly used as a sales strategy. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt. A lot of people use that as a sales strategy to discourage customers from buying their competitors' products. So I'm in the technology industry. So we're in software development, systems engineering, people buy software, hardware. And when I was coming up, you know, the way people would use FUD in the technology industry is, hey, no one ever got fired for buying from IBM. So if you took that now, no one ever got fired for shopping on Amazon. No one ever got fired for using Google, right? Because it's really discouraging people from taking risk. It's saying, go with what you know, go with what's worked. And so that fear, uncertainty, doubt is a sales strategy. Well, when I think of that as a business owner, though, I said, you know what? Those are actually the 3 categories that I have dealt with as my business has grown. So that's really what I want to focus on how do you navigate those types of feelings, situations that occur, starting with fear. So I mentioned I'm celebrating 10-year anniversary. So 10 years ago, 2009, I decided I was going to start my own business. You know, and I had to really think about why I was doing it. And for me, it was about quality of time, believe it or not. You know, as a business owner, you think, really? Quality of time? But I wanted to control my time. I wanted to control my own destiny. I wanted to control my schedule. I had a daughter who was going into high school, and I wanted to really spend time with her on my own terms because I traveled quite a bit for the companies that I were working for at the time. Also a big event was my mother had passed the year before. So it was about priorities, you know, hey, I'm in this rat race. You can only make so much money. You can only get so many titles. So you really have to think about what's important. So those were the things that were entering my mind. So when I took that leap of faith and started the company, fear was not something that entered my mind at that time. I was excited. You know, this is my opportunity. This is my chance. But after I started, you know what the first thing you think about is what? What is the fear? Fear of failure. Exactly. Great, I'm out here now. What if this doesn't work out? You know, now I've got to worry about bills, You know, how am I perceived to my peers? You know, so fear of failure was the first thing that I had to deal with. And I think that's an issue that many of you struggle with. So I came to tell you, in case you didn't know, you will fail. So you can kind of let that go. You will fail. If you haven't failed, for many of you, the 1 to 5, 5 to 10, you probably aren't taking any chances. You're probably playing it safe. You're probably trying to make sure that everything's perfect before you take that next step. And I'm encouraging you, take the next step. Fail. That's how we learn. We learn through failure. So there's fear of failure, but there's also, you know what the other fear is? Fear of success. You know, that's the one I wasn't expecting, right? Wow, things are going pretty well. I can do this. Well, wait a minute. What if we grow too fast? Can I handle that? Right? You know, that fear of success, that's another thing that comes in. And that's one that's more difficult to navigate because success is a good thing. That's what you supposedly, everyone who starts a business, they want to be successful. So what I would encourage you to do when you're talking about fear, the key to combat fear is planning. Planning. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. So you have to know, what are your objectives? Remember I talked about my why. You know, why did I start my business? So give thought to what is your plan or strategy for your business. Because if you have a strategy, if you know what you're trying to achieve, it takes that fear off the table because you're working your plan. So I would encourage you, if you, and I don't mean a business plan, okay? I know everybody tells you, and I'm probably the worst person to talk about that because that business plan, you know, it'll be outdated probably the 90 days after you started the business and things change and you're trying to keep that up to date. But I mean, just having a strategy, having objectives about what you want to accomplish with your business. So have a plan, have a strategy. The second area I mentioned was uncertainty. Uncertainty, that fear of making a decision. You're at a crossroads. You're trying to determine what is the next step in my plan, in my growth, in my development. How do you handle that uncertainty? So really after planning, a lot of you know it's another P. What do we usually have to get into? It's preparation, right? And that's what you guys are doing here. I mean, I'm glad to see you because this is part of the preparation. It's that continuous learning. Whether you've been in business 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there's always something to learn. And you're not only learning from reading books, articles, life experiences, but you're learning from your peers. You know, I learn more from hearing about other people's challenges, struggles, victories than necessarily my own experiences because they're preparing you for what may come in your future. Can anyone share an uncertainty that they may be dealing with right now? Anyone brave enough to? Oh, all right, I like it. Life after college. And what as far as what's next? Career-wise? So if you couldn't hear what she said life after college, trying to decide what to do career-wise, what are the next steps, and it's very similar. Are you starting a business? Okay. So in that preparation, so she has kind of two things she's struggling with. It's what do I do, but it's also how do I do it? So in the preparation, those are the two things. It's not just the what, okay? You got to have an idea of what it is you want to do, but it's the how. And the how is where it really gets critical in terms of your strategy. When I started my business, I had a mentor who gave me this advice. He said, hey, it's great. You're a business of one. I'm sitting at my kitchen table. What I have to offer are my own services and experiences. He said, but before you go too far down this path, I need you to make a decision. Do you want to be a consultant or do you want to build a business? You can't do both. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Because if you're a consultant and I'm spending all my time, I'm the billable resource, so I'm working for someone, I'm performing the activities, you don't have time to spend on that strategy, that planning, that preparation that I mentioned, because you're focused on doing the work. And at the time, I knew I wanted to build a business. So that was my fork in the road in terms of uncertainty. Well, which way am I going to go? Because making that decision meant less income, because at the time, that means I could not work 40, 50 hours. I had to cut back my time to 20 hours a week because I needed that other 20 hours to work on my business. So that's a decision. It's a personal decision. There's no right or wrong answer. I know many successful consultants or one-person companies. Some of you in the room, maybe just be you and you're doing quite well. That's a choice. But if you want to build your business, it's very difficult to do the things that are necessary to make sure that you are prepared and have a strategy if you don't allow yourself the time to do that. So I would encourage you to think about that when you're going down that path, so you can deal with any uncertainties that come up. The third area of the D is doubt. You know, and doubt can come from within and doubt can come from others. You know, of wondering, am I doing this the right way? Am I in the right place? Is this the right career move? Did I study what I need to study to make sure I'm prepared for what I'm about to do? And doubt is about attitude. It's about belief. For me, it's about my faith. You know, that's what I rely on. You know, I rely on my faith to determine when I'm battling doubt. But with doubt come challenges. Wondering, what's right? What's right for me in that very moment? One of the things that I struggle with as a business owner, everyone do taxes here, I hope? You know, we're all up to date on our taxes? Boo, okay. When you're battling doubt, you need a great support system because you can't do this alone, right? You need people to encourage you. You need people to reassure you. You need to be able to feel like I have a plan, I'm prepared, I'm confident in what my next steps are. So building part of my support system was making sure that I had a team around me, and that included my accountant. Part of my strategy 5 years ago was as my company grew, I needed an accountant that was a partner, not transactional, not just, hey, here are your receipts, let me put them in this form and spit out a return. I needed someone that I could talk to, that I could say, here's where I think I'm going. Here's what I think I'm going to do next. And they could give me advice and guidance on strategy. Well, because that was part of my plan and my strategy 5 years ago, when these crazy new tax laws came out last year, we were talking about it. We were positioning. There were some changes that he had to actually advise me on so I could prepare and be ready for those types of changes. So as many of my peers who I talked to were scrambling, I have no idea where I'm going to end up this year, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I had such peace. It was a non-event for me with this whole change because I felt prepared, so I didn't have that doubt. So I want you guys to really kind of think about the difference that makes and the time that did not have to be spent reacting because I had positioned myself in advance. So I think those are the things that I really wanted to kind of make sure I emphasize, that when you're dealing with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, you know, it's about planning, it's about preparation, you know, and those lead to alleviating the doubt that you may have. Does that make sense? It sounds simple, right? Doesn't it sound simple? Isn't this easy? Right? No? You know, it's not. So I give you these steps, and this is why we're getting on about good and bad days. Because with all these great procedures and plans and strategies, they work when things are going well, right? You know, hey, but what about, and you know, we look at it now, the timing, I thought about that a lot this week with what happened here in our city, right? With the tornadoes, the devastation, the people impacted. Hey, I can just throw these out, right? Because you say, where does that all come into play? How do they apply? How do I deal with the unexpected things that are going to occur in my business, the horrible things I'm going to have to deal with, and still perform, still show up? Well, I would say number one is it starts with you as the leaders in your organizations. You set the tone. You set the tone by not how you're acting in that moment of the unexpected, but how you act in all the other moments. Because people are watching you. So if you have put these principles in place, people will feel confident in you and your abilities, and I mean people like your employees, your customers, your business partners, your vendors, your peers, based on your actions through the good times and the bad times. If you are undisciplined, if you are unprepared frequently, right? If you appear to always blow with the wind, do you feel that people will have confidence in you in times of distress? No. Do you feel your employees will feel safe that they are in an organization that has stability if you have not demonstrated those principles on those good days, on those predictable days? No. So one of the things that in our organization that I was really proud of is we try to live these principles. We try our best. We're not perfect. You know, we make mistakes, but we try to always go back to our why. And that's why that's so important when you're forming that plan and strategy. Because in these tumultuous times, in these unpredictable times, you remember why you're doing this. So when we started the business and I started the company and I started hiring people, it was about the people. That was my why. I wanted to take care of the people who work for JYG. I wanted to take care of my customers, and I wanted to know them. You know, anybody who's seen me, I talk about, I want to know my people, I want to know my customers, I want to know my partners. I don't want anyone to feel like a number. So with that philosophy of wanting to know the people, when these things hit, I didn't have to drive the idea of, hey, what can we do in our community? I had multiple employees calling me, hey, I know we're doing something, so what do we need to do? How are we organizing? Where are we bringing supplies? Where are we going? Because that had been inbred into our culture of who we are. So I think that's important because the why is you perpetuate that why, and that's how you navigate, that's how you deal with good and bad days, because you stay focused on why you're in business and being consistent and true to that. And it can evolve over time. The reason you started the day you graduated from college, it can change. It can change. You can change your mind, but you still need to make sure you have a plan when you change your mind. You need to make sure you have a strategy when you change your mind. And you need to be able to communicate that strategy, to your team. But you have to make that decision of what's really important, because I talk about we did this to be successful, right? Everybody wants to be a success. I would ask you, define success for yourself. That's the biggest debate I have probably with other business owners is, how do you define success? Some people, it's about how much revenue they have, right? Well, if I hit this number, I'm successful. Maybe. Sometimes it's about what you're selling or developing or making. Once this is complete, I'm successful. Once I have this many employees, once I'm in this many states, once I'm in this newspaper, in this article. How do you define success? That's your why. That consistency will drive your plan, your strategy, your preparation. If your why is not secure and consistent with your actions, you'll just be like a leaf in the wind, right? So it's important that you really have to define that for yourself and find that support system that supports those beliefs. So I talked about you can't do it alone, right? Everybody needs help. How many have a mentor that they work with now? It doesn't have to be a formal mentorship, but just somebody that you said, hey, okay. Is that mentor a cheerleader? What was that? Not always. No, that's good. One of the things when I started my business, I have some people who've been with me since the beginning, and I said, you know what you're here for? You're here to pop me upside the head when I start to change, or I'm not the person that I said I was, or I'm doing something that I didn't say I would never do. Because you need people who are going to challenge you, right? So you need that support system. They're not just there to help you. They're not just there to cheer for you and encourage you, but they're also there to kick you in the butt when you need it. So having that environment, that culture, that support system around you is also what's going to help you, because we just can't do it alone. So I heard a quote from a guy when I was at an event yesterday, and it really stuck with me, and I don't know why, and it's probably something you may have heard before, but I hadn't, because we were talking about good and bad days, and he said, someone told me a long time ago, hey, rain's going to come, right? It's not always going to be nice outside. He says, but sometimes you have to make your own sunshine. And that really kind of hit me. I said, you're right. Sometimes you have to make your own sunshine. And why that was important to me is I'm a believer of never getting too high or too low in the good or bad days. I focus on, doesn't mean I don't get mad, doesn't mean I don't get sad, but I really try to always be able to reflect and say, you know what? No matter what's happening, this too shall pass. So that even keel, that's why that making your own sunshine. So being able to, when you're stepping out in the rain, finding something good. Finding something good. So you see in the papers, we were talking about the storms. Despite the devastation, the good is watching this community come together. From all parts of town, coming together in a bad situation and rallying, right? So you've got to celebrate those little things to really get through those hard times. Because if you're always waiting for that big, super success, I've got to win the $5 million contract, the $1 million contract. What about the $10,000 contract? A win is a win. For those of you who've been in business long enough, you'll start to appreciate those moments of success, and your people will appreciate those moments of success. Because in the struggle, in the grind of day-to-day business, you need those moments to sometimes just to be proud, to be happy, to be satisfied. And I don't say you stay there. You know, you got to at some point go, okay, great. We celebrate it. Now let's get back to it. And what's the next step? What's the next thing in our plan? But I think it's very important that you celebrate your successes, even the small ones. Because without that, it's hard to find joy in what you do. So in the last part, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I love my job. I love my job. So sometimes it feels like, well, she works a lot, but it's because I have joy in what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the service we have. I just love it. I have a passion for it. So I would tell you, whatever you choose to do, make sure you're passionate about it. Because that passion, that joy, that's what's going to get you through when things don't go well, when you fail. Remember, you're going to fail. Everybody, you heard it here from me. So when it happens, you say, oh, Jackie told me about that. I'm ready for that. I can move on. It's having a passion, having that desire for what you're doing. I'm going to pause for a moment, and I want to open it up for some questions, because I wanted this to be interactive. That's why I didn't want to sit on the stage back there. I hate that. It puts me to sleep. That's why I don't have a PowerPoint. But I really wanted us, and we have a small enough group here that we can have some good conversations. So I'll first start with a question before I ask you a question. Anyone have any questions? Thoughts? Comments? No. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Was there anything as you were starting, I know you talked about trying not to go too high or too low, but were there any moments that stuck out to you as you were starting that you just felt like, how do we come back from here? Like it just felt so much of a challenge.
Yes. As my father would say, I'm glad you asked. When I started the business, remember I said I started in 2009. My work is, we do software development, IT consulting services for the Department of Defense. That's my primary customer. If you may remember, probably I would say it was the fall of 2010, the federal budget did not get passed on time. I was excited because I got that first win, right? I've got this contract. Hooray. What do you mean you're not paying invoices? Can you do that? That's what happened to me. And what I found out is, payroll's still coming in. I had a couple people working for me. So I went to my bank and I said, hey, can I get a line of credit? And they said, sure. Let's look at your tax returns last year. That's what we use the basis. Now remember my great decision that I'm going to cut back on revenue because I'm going to build the business. So I didn't have that much revenue the first year. And they were like, we don't really know if we're going to be able to give you a line of credit. Now, you might be able to tell I'm persistent. Who else can I talk to? Because I'm dealing with my local bank. And they said, well, we can take you up to headquarters, call you, and I'm with Key Bank. So they said, you can go to Cleveland, we'll let you talk to someone. And when I tell you, I had to tell my life story. I started off with I was born in Selma, Alabama, and I had this. I really did, because I had to convince him that it made sense to give me a line of credit despite what my financials were. And that he asked me things too. Tell me about your plan. This is a true story. Tell me what your strategy is for your business. Because he had to feel confident that I was a good risk, right? Am I just somebody who didn't give any thought, started a business, and now I'm stuck? No. We had such a great conversation. He gave me a line of credit, and he said, and then when you do your taxes this year in April, come back because I want to give you more. True story. At the time, the sky was falling, because without that line of credit at that time, I guess I'd have been using credit cards or something, getting, advances, because I was stuck. But it taught me a lesson, right? It taught me a lesson about cash flow, about reserves. I had to adjust my strategy that says, okay, this can happen. And as you guys have been around listening to the news, it's every year now, right? Oh, is the budget going to pass? We had it happen last year where I had people who had to go home for 30 days because there was no budget. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. Oh. Whoever's next, please.
I saw you first.
Yes.
Stole the mic, sorry.
So when you made the decision to kind of cut back to 20 hours and start working on the business, what are just some practical things that you started doing when you have people expecting work from you and that's just a big jump?
Well, for me, part of my strategy is because I knew, and I'm in the IT business, right? So my infrastructure was very important. I had to make some decisions on things like email. Was I going to use an open email system? But no, I wanted to use something that was private, so I know I wanted to use Outlook. So I'm thinking about, my IT environment, VoIP phones, and I'm thinking about my office, right? I'm thinking about someday I'm not going to be sitting at my kitchen table here, and I may need some physical space. So what do I need to be ready for that? The other thing I was looking at is what type of people, what would be my first hire? And I struggle with that. Is it another revenue generating person, who can add to the cash flow? Or is it someone who's more going to help me with this building the business? And I went with the revenue generating, so that was another decision I had to make. And the other thing was looking at making sure I was really smart on my business and my markets and my potential customers. Going to a lot of conferences, talking to a lot of peers who were in my industry. And then the other areas was subcontracting. I didn't have a track record. It was going to be very difficult for me to go to a customer and said, hey, I'm the new startup. Would you give me a contract? Probably not. So it was really about that partnering and teaming. So I was, again, building relationships with other businesses that I knew I wanted to work with. Thanks.
Hi. So I'm wondering if there are any common bad days or mistakes that new businesses make, things that we can perhaps anticipate or expect or anything like that.
I think the one is the one I mentioned about really not having a good understanding of your industry, how your industry buys, who they buy from, how to price, what is the market rate for what you're trying, because I think when I talk to a lot of them, it's, oh, well, this is what I think it's worth, and it goes to different spectrums. Sometimes you're pricing yourself too low, so low isn't always attractive to a customer, right? Sometimes that scares them. That says they don't really understand my business because their price doesn't seem like they could really do what I need them to do. Now, if you have a business case, if you can say, here's why my price is lower, because I do this, I cut here, that's different. But you really have to know the landscape of your business, because that's the biggest challenge, is people just really aren't informed. The other side is making sure you truly understand what it takes to run a business. How are you going? Are you going to be an LLC? Are you going to file as an S corp? Are you going to be a C corp? What type of legal representation do you need? Do you know how to put a contract together? Do you know how to put a subcontract together? Are your employees going to be W-2s? Are they going to be 1099s? All these things on the business side can severely impact your success if you don't have a good understanding, or at least have the resources to talk to someone who can assist you and guide you in that area. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to switch gears. I don't know if this is a question anybody else will ask, but I want to know, based on your 10 years in business and also probably prior to starting your business, what advice would you give startups and early growth companies about incorporating wellness into building the business, wellness of themselves, so that they are always kind of like in the right headspace and just taking care of themselves? Because in my own experience and just observing and working with leaders of corporations, when they are not right within, eventually it pours over into their business, and then they start running their business how they're running their personal life. So I guess based on your experience, what would you offer?
Sure. Now, I'm not the poster child for work-life balances, and I have a couple people who work with me in the room, so I can't get away with even trying to pull that off. But remember, I love what I do. I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like work to me. But I do believe in taking care of yourself. So one of the things that I do is, I'm a former athlete. Back in the day, I played a little basketball, a little soccer. I used to do those things to keep in shape. Can't do that anymore. But I work with a personal trainer. So I started off, I got a membership at the Y, right? I'm going to go to the Y. That fell off. Okay, I'm going to go take classes. Man, I'm this late. Can't make the class. So what I ended up doing is I have a trainer who comes to my home. So she comes to the house. Do you know the pressure of knowing somebody's in your driveway going, yeah, I do, to make it a priority for myself, because health is important. Unfortunately, in my family history, not many people have lived long. I mentioned my mother. My mother passed away at 65, so she never got to see any of this. She doesn't know anything about JYG except when she's looking down. So I mean, that's a regret. So health is important. The other thing is, I told you, remember I said you set the tone? Something I learned. So I'm working, again, loving what I'm doing. I'm in the office since late, 7. And I look over and I see another one of our employees who's in there. I'm like, what are you working on? Oh, just kind of getting some things done. Don't think anything of it. Another day I'm working, I look over, I see a couple other people. What are they? Well, dumb me, it hits me. We're not leaving till the boss leaves, right? It's that whole thing of matching me. I don't want her to think I'm not working hard. And I'm like, that was not my intent. My intent was, I was just doing some things I wanted to get done. So what I've learned is I'll shut my laptop down and leave, even if I have something I could have done, to go home. Because I want my people to think, you have families, you have personal lives. When there's a time we have to stay late. So again, leading by example, showing that us sitting here, and I'm truly a believer, if you're taking 10 hours to get something done in a day, you need to reevaluate. Are you being efficient? Are you really prioritizing? Are you working on what's really important? Are you thrashing with busy work and, just want to feel like you're doing something? So I think it is important that you lead by example and you set the tone for your organization, because if you're not well, you're right. If your mind isn't clear, and people pick up very quickly. We've all worked at places and we're thinking about, man, I don't have any confidence or faith in the person that's leading my department, my organization. Heck, that might be why some of you started your own businesses, right? I mean, you just were a little disgruntled with your own organization. So, I mean, it is important.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
When you have a problem that's going on at work, how do you bring your team to the table? How transparent are you with them so that they know what the real issues are?
That's something that I've really grown into. I'm a private person. I really kind of keep things within. It's hard for me to, share, the small groups and, tell how I'm feeling. But I found that it made a difference the more transparent I could be with my team. First of all, most people can figure out when something's going on with you, right? I mean, you think you're walking around keeping it cool, and they're like, ooh, it's one of those days, I don't know if you want to go in there today and talk to her. So it makes sense as you can share and say, hey, and you don't have to go and tell every detail, but sometimes it's just, man, I'm having a hard day. And I know we've got some boundaries, but again, one of my people just came up and gave me a hug, right? Come here, bring it in. I'm like, I needed that, thank you. But just having that openness, and you can do that when you're in a small company where you know your people. I mean, that's why it was important for me to know my people. And it makes a difference. So as we've grown and evolved, telework has become a big thing, right? So for you, working remotely, you don't all have to be in the same place, especially with the use of technology. What I found is it's easier to implement telework because we have built relationships and know each other. I don't know if you've ever talked to somebody on the phone who you know. Even on the phone, you can tell something's wrong. Their voice doesn't sound right. That's not their normal disposition. And that's because we were able to build relationships. So it's important, and we were doing this long before we were thinking about telework, but now it still makes us to be able to be an efficient team and work that way. So I think transparency is key. Again, I try to be an even keel. If things don't go right, they know I'm upset. I don't throw things. I don't believe in cursing and all that stuff or yelling. I think that serves no purpose. But I think you have to let people know what you expect. And, one of my Jackie-isms, is inspect what you expect. So they know I'm going to ask about it. They know I'm going to check on it. But they also know the why. They know why it's important. They know why I'm asking. So they know me, and they know where it's coming from. If you people understand kind of really what the basis for what you're doing, why you're doing, how it fits into the big picture, I just think people are a little more receptive. You try to keep things closed off, and it's your own little secret, and no one needs to know but you. It's hard to get that buy-in. It's hard for people to understand where they fit into the big picture. Yes.
Can you talk about how you give back as an organization and the importance of that, not only for you personally, but for JYG, and then how that was either built into your business, or
Sure.
is it something that's kind of not an afterthought, but something that's post?
Oh, sure.
And how that works for you?
Well, I think, being a business owner, I believe we have a responsibility to be good corporate citizens. And what that means is we have responsibility to engage and to give back in the communities that we live and where we serve. So we're in 9 states, I believe. So I really try to encourage our employees, give me ideas of things that you have an interest in your communities that we can support you in. Whether that's, sponsoring kids teams, t-ball, softball, soccer, whether that's giving to great organizations like the YWCA, Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, the Dayton Art Institute, Dayton Children's, Linda Vista. I mean, women and children are kind of where we like to focus, I can tell you as a company. I believe it's something that we should do. So I'm involved personally. I'm in a lot of boards, in the community. But as a company, the more we were giving, I said, I want it to be a partnership. So from a strategy standpoint, I said, we need to look at ourselves financially and come up with a budget. This is a line item. It's not an afterthought. It's not what's left. Let me go give something. It's not a tax write-off that says, well, it's December 20th, and I need to help my tax bill, so let me give money here. It's really about looking at organizations that we feel like that we can partner with on the long term because we think it's important, it's in our responsibility. And I would encourage each of you. I mean, every dollar counts, as you guys know. There are a lot of places that have needs, and you have to, again, pick something you're passionate about. Yes, ma'am? Oh, she's coming.
So one of the challenges that I feel like I face is how to identify a company that has synergy with what you do to team with just to get a jump start or to partner with or to subcontract to? I mean, when you don't have a past performance,
Right.
how do you approach at the early stages of your business
Sure.
the company that will listen to you and say, you know, well, I've got all this expertise in this, but I have no past performance, but, you know, would you be willing to use me as a subcontractor?
Right.
Would you be willing to mentor or network me to someone else? You know, so how what's the best way to approach it? To me, that's one of my greatest challenges at this point.
Well, I think you have to really develop your value proposition. I mean, I think that's important. You've got to think about what you have to offer, because I can tell you they're going to get 30 people are going to come and say, hey, team with me, mentor me, work with me. But you got to think about what is it you have to offer? What can you bring to the table? And there's something, I know you're looking like, oh, I don't have anything. You do. You do. And I'd love to talk to you some more and brainstorm about that. But you got to think about what you bring to the table. And then I think the other thing you have to do is be willing to start small. You know, you have to minimize their risk. You know, what are they willing to do? So I can remember starting off, I think my first subcontract, I might have been 10 hours. 10 hours. Minimal investment. But let me show you what I can do. Because number one, they realize that you're just not trying to do a quick money grab, right? And it gives you an opportunity to display, you know, your skills and build. And then the other thing is, I always say, whatever business you're in the relationship business. You're not in the IT business. You're not in the sales business. You're in the relationship business. So spend time with that organization or those principals and get to know them. Let them get to know you. That's the most important thing, because it's really about a trusted relationship. Because you want somebody who has belief in you that you're going to go places, that you're going to do some things. And sometimes that's all they need, even if you don't have any past performance, is they're really betting on you.
Time for one more up here.
All right, so I work for the Department of Defense now, and I'm planning to transition to become an entrepreneur. Sorry. Discrimination.
Yes.
I seen discrimination, either you being in the IT business, females, you like they may not take you that serious, female in the IT business, ethnicity, background, religion, all of that. Are you experiencing any of those challenges? And I've seen people sometimes taking it too personal. I mean, it is personal, but it affects their business. So have you ever encountered that towards you and towards your business? And how do you address it?
Wow, have I ever encountered racism, discrimination? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, hey, we live in this world. We know it exists, right? So it's something that I have faced, and, you know, even working in the Department of Defense sector, from government personnel and other peers and team members. But number one is I don't let that define me. You know, I know my why. I know why I'm doing it. I know who I am. So I have to stay true to that. And you also have to pick your spots. I mean, there are some things I can control, right? There's some people I can say, I'm not going to work with that person. I'm not going to work in that organization. And there are others that is kind of an after-the-fact thing, where like I have work, and then you notice there's this kind of a different vibe when I come in the room, or there have been certain comments made. I can give you a real-world example. We're in the IT business. We have technology, software development, system engineering, cybersecurity. We've been doing this for many years. Cybersecurity was my expertise when I was hands-on. So I'm talking to a government buyer who says, wow, you guys seem to have a lot of work. Oh, you know, thanks, I think, right? You know, when I buy from companies like yours, I usually do things like for janitorial or landscaping. We don't really see your kind of companies in technology. True story. Now, this is a person that's controlling the buying now for an organization where I have worked. This is who I'm going to have to deal with going forward. Number one is I have to accept what I'm dealing with, right? And now I have to start to navigate. First of all, I have a very diverse company, and we have real conversations. So, I tell my folks, in case you didn't know, you work for an African-American owned company, woman-owned company, because you're going to deal with it. So if you think you're not going to come across it when you're out there representing JYG, you're fooling yourself. So prepare yourselves for that. And let's talk about it. What does that mean? I have, because I've been this person my whole life, so I don't necessarily let it get to me as much. It's probably my employees, other executives who are not minorities that get mad. I'm kicking under the table like, don't do it. Did you hear what he just said? Don't do it. Calm down. But you have to deal with it. That's the world we live in. So I think my thing is, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show them. Because I'm going to continue to do what I think is important, which is try to be exceptional and be excellent. My response to him was, really? I said, well, I know you have a lot of companies that have IT contracts in your organization. Are you having performance issues or things? Well, no. Oh, because I know a lot of those companies. They seem to be doing well. I mean, they are. I said, oh, okay, well, great. That's all you can do. You can't change hearts and minds sometimes, so I think you have to accept that that's part of the business and not let it become a distraction. I think that was your second point, right? So it becomes a distraction because that's not everyone. So if I change the way I do business for this one individual, I've let them get me off my plan, my strategy, and then I let them create a bad day for me instead of creating my own sunshine. So I think that's my time. I really thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate the great questions. You really gave me things to think about. I wish you the best with your organizations, the best of success, and I look forward to networking with you at a later date. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week.